Okay, so what I'm going to talk about tonight is my homebrew stereo macro camera. As you can see, it's not finished. It doesn't have any housing or anything like that, but I've come to realise I'll probably never finish it. So I've got a bunch of images, so we sort of walk around it from the outside. This is the view from the back, and on the top there's a large touch screen. I say large; it's about this big. And then on the back, there's a little tiny screen where that just has some sort of debug and diagnostic information. And then on the left, we'll just walk around to the left a little bit, and then you can see on the side there's some rocker switches. They're just for manual focus and manual exposure. And then we'll go around to turn around a bit more, and then a bit more. So this is the view at the front. So those big yellow things, so they're LED strip LED lights, and as I mentioned before, I don't actually use those very much anymore, and I'll talk more about that later, why that is. So I'll keep turning around to the front, so you can just see underneath the screen, and then in the front section there, I'll just zoom in there. And you can see the two camera sensors. So there's one horizontal and one vertical, and at this particular time, the two sensors are perfectly overlapped. They're both looking at the same thing. So you can adjust the position of the rear sensor. So you can adjust the stereo base. So here, the two cameras are just about 2 millimeters apart, and it looks like there's kind of a double vision, but that's because there's a half silvered mirror at 45 degrees, which you can just make out on the sides. You can see there's like a 45-degree line, and that's the mount for the mirror. Now you can actually adjust the position of the rear one remotely. So there's a little motor inside, which I sourced out of an old DVD drive. And if you look carefully, you can see just at the bottom of the mirror, you can just see a little serration, and that's the worm drive that is connected to the motor, and that allows you to adjust the stereo base between the cameras. So so I've got the left camera is mounted on the bottom, and it is reflected gathers the light reflected off the mirror, and then the mirror at the back is looking through the mirror. And the good thing about this is it means you can actually completely overlap the cameras, and for macro it's very important to get them close together. And in fact, most of the pictures I take, I use a separation of only 2 or 3 millimeters. So having them overlapped is really good. Okay, so I'll continue walking around the outside. So this is the view from the front and to the side, and keep turning around. And over this side we have a couple more rocker switches. So I use these for focus control. And then towards the front, you can also see a couple of micro switches, and they're the shutter release buttons. And there's two, because one's the sort of half shutter and the other one's the full shutter. Okay, so I'll keep turning around, and then we get right round to the back. And then the next view is from the top. So looking down from the same position here, but looking down. Here you can see the two Raspberry Pi computers. So they're called Raspberry Pi W. They're very small. They're only about this big. And the one at the the one at the back is looking after the left camera, and then the second one is looking after the right camera, and then mounted to that is the little display board and a little stick. You can see a little stick. That's a 4-way switch, and I use that for moving the camera left and right, and some other functions. But the main one's the camera left and right. The big loop on the left, in orange, that's the connection between the Raspberry Pi computers and the camera sensors. And you need that big loop there, because as the camera moves backwards and forwards. It needs that flexibility to be able to remain connected. Okay, this is the view from the bottom, just to give you an idea of the wiring. So I tried to keep everything modular and everything's unpluggable, so you can pull it apart and put it back together again, which is often required, unfortunately. Okay, so this is the view with it switched on. So on the top you can see that's a live preview. So the display shows the live preview in the middle, and then touch sensitive buttons, which I'll run through those in a second. And you can see on the display at the bottom, that's just showing you the area that it's currently focusing on. So the focus is a bit weird. You touch the area you want, and then it focuses on that. So that little display at the bottom shows that bit that's focused. Okay, so this is just showing the preview screen and the buttons on the side. So I just use these to remind me what all the buttons do, so I can step through that. The button on the top left is the exposure. I just have a very simple exposure, which is either normal or night or day. Normally I use night because I do most of the stuff indoors. And then the next button down, HDR, controls the number of HDR steps. Typically I just use either 1 or 3. So if it doesn't particularly need HDR, I just use 1. Otherwise, one light and one underexposed, one overexposed. But you can have up to 7. And the other interesting button is the focus sweep. So this is a real time saver. So here you can choose how many different focus stacks to use. So I find for most of the indoor stuff I use about 8. If it's particularly challenging, I might use 16. So this is where you select how many focus sweep steps. And you'll notice the next 2 buttons, set far and set near. So these are the buttons I use to define the extent of the focus sweep. So what you do is you touch the area of the screen that you want to set as the far, and then you focus on that, and then set the set far button, then focus on the nearest object, focus on that, and set near. Okay, so another button is a zoom button. So this is really handy to make sure the focus is actually achieved. The focus is my own algorithm, so it doesn't work really reliably. So you touch the zoom, and then you can have a close look and see if the focus has actually worked. Next button down, you can select between the right camera, which is the normal one, or the left camera, or an anaglyph. This is not a live view, so I really only use this just for making sure the separation is reasonable. So it's just like a one-off preview, and then you go back to the right camera. The next button down is display preview, so it's either display or live. And so this is like the playback. And the reason I'm showing this here is because the useful part about this is that it treats a collection of images, which I call a sequence, as one unit. And so you can see at the top it says image 1 of 9, and in this mode you can different HDR views or the different focused stacks, and then you can go on to the next sequence, the next set. Okay, so this is my I call it a cubic meter under my onto like a sliding drawer that comes out from the bench, and then at the back there's just a backdrop, bit of wood, and then in the foreground I got like another bit of wood, bit of bark, and then the subject in the middle, and it's all sort of suspended with different arrangements. And on the sides I have a couple of LED strip lights, and they're on like gooseneck, flexible goosenecks. So as you've probably been told, one of the keys to good photography is the lighting. And so these are great. I just move the lights to wherever it looks good, basically. And this is why I tend not to use the the LED lights around the front of the camera because they're just fixed and they kind of a bit overwhelming. So, but with these strip lights on the side, I can get them to somewhere that looks good. And you also notice in the middle there's a little another light. It's just like a little spotlight, so I can get the light up just the subject. Okay, so it's just the same. This is just a view from the right. So you can see a bit more clearly the foreground and background objects. And I've got a little doorstop there just to sort of raise or lower the bit of wood to what suits the subject. And then this is the view from the left. And you can see here I've just got the spotlight suspended on a little gimbaling arrangement, and I can just get that to a position that whatever looks good. Okay, so that's the setup I use. Now, what I do is I actually get it all framed up in the studio, and then I go back to a different room, and I access the cameras remotely. So this is my PC views. This is just a 2D view. It's actually just a screenshot of my PC. And in the top left is the view from the left camera, and then the top right is the right camera, and then down the bottom is just a file transfer program. So what I do is get it all set up, and then I can do the fine adjustments remotely. And then like I can zoom in, for example, just by sort of clicking on the touch buttons, and then it does the same action as if you're standing in front of it. So I zoom in, make sure the focus is good. And then once I've gone through the sequence, captured all the focus, all the sequence, I'll then transfer the images. So this is just showing what it looks like when you transfer the images from each camera. And it really just it's basically just a drag and drop of a directory, and that pulls across the whole image stack. Okay, and then from Explorer, this is just a small sequence. So this is just showing the captured images. There's like three underexposed, normal, and then overexposed. And then within those exposures, in this case, there's 3 different depths. And then this is that photo. So this is just the near focus, and then the middle focus, and then the rear focus. And then after they're stacked together, that's the combination. Okay, so I'll go through some sample photos now. So this is one of some locust cicada shells, and it's obviously all canned. But you can see I've actually these are probably just maybe 10 centimeters away. And they're all in focus through. I can't remember. I probably used 8 different depths in this case, and then stacked them together. This is a couple of wasps on a like a pine needle, and so a lot of these I was kind of testing out the limits of what the camera can do. So that pine, the closest point of that pine cone is probably about only like 5 or 6 centimeters from the camera. The background is probably about 20 centimeters, just to give you an idea of the range. This is a close-up, even closer. This is probably about 5 centimeters away. And then I've drawn a box here just to show you what the next image is. So the next image is just a zoomed in version of this same image to give you an idea of the resolution. So you can see there's still quite a lot of resolution. So even though I've zoomed in on the same image here, there's still pretty good resolution. And this is a sharpened version. And like, for example, I didn't know cicadas had hairy noses. So there you go. There you do. And if you look, you can kind of look inside. If you're looking in 3D, you can sort of see the sinews and stuff on the inside. So yeah, there's plenty of detail there. This is kind of a test image again to sort of push the limits of what it can do. The tips of the leaves they're like about 4 centimeters away from the camera, so quite challenging to be able to focus on something 4 centimeters and also 20 centimeters away. So again, this is the box just to show you the next image is the zoomed in portion, and then the sharpened version of that. So you can still see quite a lot of detail there. I should say that the cameras are 8 megapixel cameras, and I try and frame them so that they're, making full use of the 8 megapixels. So this is another camera, another flower. This one's being backlighted. So there's actually a little, I've put the spotlight behind the fog flower, and that's the zoomed in version. So you can still see quite a bit of detail. You can see a little pollen on the leaves. This is a dead flower, and then the zoomed in version of that. So you can still see quite a bit of structure there. Some more, another stage shot, and the zoomed in version. And then I think this is the last one. Some detailed flowers, and then the zoomed in detail in both the foreground and the background. And then back to the beginning. So that's it. So yeah, so that's the camera. What it looks.
Very well done.
Thank you, Jim.
Did I go over time?
Beautiful.
Yes, it is fabulous.
This is presumably one that someone would like to ask a question. Anyone want to ask a question?
Jim, those cameras, where did you get them from? Are they like GoPro lenses or something?
No, they're okay. I originally started off with just the standard Pi camera, so the ones that the Pi people sell, but that has got a fixed focus. So I swapped it out originally for a 5 megapixel from a company called Arducam, and that's basically what they do. So I added the software to be able to talk to that, and then do the collect all the different individual focuses. And then I upgraded to an 8 megapixel version of that. And just today I noticed they've now got a 16 megapixel version of that as well. So yeah, I'm tempted, but extra work, yeah.
Which version of Raspberry Pi? Like, is that the first of the zeros, or have you got the second?
This is the first one. The second one, again, the second one would be good. There's a lot more processing power. This is the Raspberry Pi Zero W, and the W adds the
the new ones are effectively the same as a Raspberry Pi 3B. So there's some good processing granted. They're worth if you can find them.
That's right. Yeah. So, but I think as I say, I don't think I'll ever finish this because there's I've got a list of things to do that's like probably got 50 items in it, and there's lots of things sort of half work and
the photographs are fantastic, Jim. Well done.